Welcome back. I've got Justin Abrams on the line. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing well, Michael. How are you?
I am doing really well this morning. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to be on the show. Really looking forward to this chat. So why don't you share a little bit about you and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Yeah, so Justin Abrams, I'm based in Boston. I've lived here pretty much my entire life. I worked in corporate for a little over 10 years. And I did a number of different tasks, I was kind of all over the place, consulting, IT, some marketing, some market research. And about 5 years ago, I started my own business, Aryo Consulting Group, which is really like a McKinsey for small businesses. Really helping businesses grow has been our main focus, especially small businesses have that kind of growing pain. And we have been doing this for 5 years. I would say we've had about 350 or so clients now, and really of all different walks of life, from the large companies that everyone's heard of down to the one person startups that are pre-revenue.
Love that you get to work with all those different groups and leverage the expertise that you have from your career and make it accessible for small business, which we know is the heart and soul of our country. Because every one of those big companies originally started off very small, and there's always the opportunities for organizations that are small in nature to just scale beyond their wildest imagination. But it's just a case of following, the guidance, learn from those that have done it or learn from those that have, worked with teams that have done it. And when you do that, it shortens the journey a bit. Everyone wants the quick fix, don't do the quick fix because the quick fix just isn't going to work for you. But ultimately, it boils down to just, leveraging what you know, and I always tell this to entrepreneurs and leaders and all leaders of life, you need to be comfortable with what you don't know and ask for help. And I see that time and time again where people get stuck is it's almost they're afraid to ask, even though they've hired you as, their advisor. You're going to guide them on how to get to the next level, but there's this apprehension, and maybe I'm wrong, but people that I've helped and organizations I've helped, I see it a lot where there's this uncertainty and they're really uncomfortable with it. And I tell them, you need to learn to lean into that being uncomfortable because that's when you're going to go, okay, well, let's figure this out. Because, and I remind people this all the time, you didn't always used to be able to walk. Now, of course, people that aren't unable to walk, I'm not picking on you at all, but when we were all born, none of us learned how to walk yet. We had to learn that along the way. When you're an entrepreneur or business, you're learning sales. I've never sold anything in my life. Have you ever gone on a date? Yeah. Well, you sold yourself for that date. Have you ever been hired by a company? Yeah. Well, you sold yourself to get hired. So you've been selling. You've been selling since you were a little kid when you first started to talk. You were selling your parents on convincing them, yes, it's a good idea to buy this candy for me. So when people say I've never sold anymore, like, I don't think you're right on with that. But so with like I said, the large number of organizations you've worked with, big and small and every size in between, are you seeing some parallels? And one thing before I forget this too, and I've thrown a lot at you, so I apologize for that. But you said you started about 5 years ago, and it's like, okay, oh, pandemic start. All right, well that's an interesting time to start something. Why not? The world's upside down. Why pick a better time to let's launch a business? But we can jump on that in a minute. But are there some parallels that you're seeing between the big and the small? That's some of the things that organizations are struggling with, especially lately.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is trying to figure out sales and marketing, and it's just moving so fast. And also, the acquisition costs have gone dramatically up, whether that's a big company or a small company. So if you're, and it's really industry specific, right? If you're selling, let's just say, really, really expensive equipment that's, or you have a really strong recurring revenue and a long lifetime value, then it might still make sense to be running expensive, Meta and Google ads. But for the most part, most people don't have that. So I think in general, like every large and small company is essentially dealing with the same issues. Some smaller companies are dealing with them at a more aggressive level because they don't have maybe a backstop of cash flow coming in, or maybe they don't have an elite, team of people to solve these issues. But for the most part, I mean, almost every big company is dealing with the same issues as the small. And in many ways, because of like the political pressure, it's really difficult to be a large company because people are gunning for you as well. So, I don't envy the CEOs of like the Amazons and the Googles of the world. I think it's far easier to be a small fish, or a big fish in a small pond and just kind of compete locally. But that's just part. I think every CEO is like grass is greener on the other side. So I don't. I think in general they're all about the same issues.
One of the things that I've seen, and I don't think it's necessarily just an American thing. I think it happens all across the globe, but eh, it wasn't that long ago, and we'll pick on Amazon for a minute, when they were losing money hand over fist, and everybody's like, okay, can they be successful? They can be successful. All of a sudden, they took off and they started becoming really successful, and everybody's like, yeah, we love Amazon, do this. And then they get to the top, and now everybody's trying to knock him down. It just seems to be the model. It's like we cheer for the little guy. Little guy makes it to the absolute top. Okay, we got to knock them off. They're too successful, and it's that scarcity mindset, I think, in a lot of ways. But it's also, I think, sometimes there's some egos getting hurt because, well, why was it him and not me? Well,
Yeah.
what did you do? In what risks did you take in order for you to create the potential for you to grow? And when and I've seen this meme many times and it's bounced around quite a bit, and it's kind of a mantra that I follow to a certain extent for myself within reason is the only competition that I have is as an individual is it's me versus yesterday's version of me. Now, in a company setting, yeah, you could have that kind of mentality. It's just us against, but that doesn't necessarily work because you need to understand what the market is telling you. You need to understand where customers' allegiances are, and we've seen it's funny because picking on Amazon again, we've seen people absolutely trash Walmart and they go to Amazon and then they're mad at Amazon and they go buy at Walmart again and or Target. And it's like, people, who cares? What do you need as a consumer? What do I need? Okay, I need to order some eye drops or some things for my new puppy or whatever. Okay, where am I going to get it? Well, I'm going to factor in convenience. I'm going to factor in, the product reviews. I'm going to, is this good for my dog? Will it align with what my dog needs right now or myself? And too often we get lost in the weeds of things and listening to what, the world is telling us. Oh, Amazon bad. Well, you know what? How many people does Amazon employ? Okay. All right. We want Amazon to go away. All right. Well, guess what? Now there's tens of thousands of people that are now without a job. Well, that's bad. So we end up confusing ourselves as individuals and we get lost in the things instead of just kind of taking a step back, simplifying and going, okay, as a business owner, what market do I serve? What are their needs? How can I meet them? Start off simple. Life complicates things enough as it is, but I find time and time again, especially when organizations are struggling, is they're just making things a lot more complex than they need to be. And I'm one of these tabula rasa or clean slate kind of guys. Let's empty the junk drawer and then we're going to put it back together again for what fits. And all of a sudden you start getting a lot more efficient at things and you get a little more clarity around what does your customer want? And that's it's a question that I think a lot of companies, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think a lot of companies forget to ask that question, which is really unique in a way because they shouldn't they ask what their customers want?
Yeah. The biggest problem that companies have is they don't try to solve the most basic of that question. They try to do all the bells and whistles beyond that, but like they have failed to understand that like the customer basically wants the best price, the best quality, like a balance of quality and price and convenience. Like Amazon is probably the most famous for that. They were like, we'll do all of those things and we'll deliver it to you in 2 days when everyone was doing 5 days. And so it's just a matter, and another example of this is Tesla, right? It's like, well, people don't necessarily want the negative convenience of having to potentially not fill up their car, like lose their car's ability to drive at like 200 miles at the time. And so they were like, okay, we're just going to make like the most amazing quality car that can go 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds. You're going to have to just like be so outrageous. That's like this, like, what they call it, like, amazing offer. It's like such a great offer. And then, oh, just by the way, like, yes, it is electric, but that's not really the thing that they're pushing. And so, yeah, I think most people, they overcomplicate things, and they need to make the website and this and that. It's like, no, just make an amazing product that customers will love, and then they'll organically sell it.
Well, it's shiny object disease. I think a lot of us suffer from that, where we go, oh, I got to, like you just mentioned, okay, I got to update the website. Okay, where's our lead magnet? And I'm thinking going to the entrepreneurial business here. Okay, what's my offer? Okay, what's my ads? Where should I advertise? Should I be on TikTok? Should I be on Instagram? Should I have run Facebook ads? It's like, okay, before you ask, should I run Facebook ads? you know, who's your audience? Where is your audience spending time? If they're not on Facebook, as much as Meta would love for you to buy their ads, your customers aren't there. If they are, then by all means, make it a component of it. But I sometimes you can go fast by slowing down. And it's one of those side effects that I thought, mistakenly, of course, during the pandemic, that we may have kind of slowed down a little bit and go, all right, let's kind of take a look at things. And we sort of did for a brief period of time when we were all figuring out how to use Teams and Zoom and everything else. But then everything just kind of went Tesla Model S speed, and each year, and I know you're seeing this too, and you mentioned it earlier, the breakneck speed that we're facing when it comes to marketing and branding and advertising is changing so quick. And then of course we toss in AI into the mix, and now content, ads, everything else can be created. What used to take days or weeks to generate an ad campaign, you can have it more or less done in an afternoon, if not quicker. And what that does is, and we're still figuring this out because we're all in the middle of it, is okay, are we overwhelming the consumer to the point where their amygdala just goes completely into freeze mode, and they just like, I can't make a decision on anything? And I've seen that, and I know you have too, when you're working with a potential client that might be talking with other agencies or whatnot, and they just get stuck. They're frozen. I don't think they're necessarily afraid to make a decision, but they're just so overwhelmed with everything. I can't make a decision. And I think there's a lot of people and a lot of organizations that are kind of in that mix right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone, um, so I think every person that's building a company, they want to improve their return on investment on ad spend. And the problem is that everyone is selling their service or option. So you'll see, like, okay, obviously there's Facebook and Meta and Google, but now, there's someone that's selling like, oh, well, cold email is the new strategy. If you can just use AI plus cold email, like AI has basically made old strategies like feel fancy and new. It's like, oh, we have this AI cold calling bot that'll cold call 10,000 people. Or, oh, with AI, you can then cold DM people. And the problem is, like, first of all, it's terrible. The quality is terrible. And B, it doesn't convert. And C, you're falling for someone selling something because they're making money. Sure, they're going to say like, "Oh, this is the best thing in the world," but the reality is it's not, and you have to go through those trials and tribulations. And oh, all the people that have talked about it are saying it's amazing. Well, follow the money. So what I try to tell people is like, don't try and like do anything crazy. Just like speak to someone who has tried everything out and failed on them and can tell you, I've told so many people like don't do cold email, it's terrible. And like no, I'm not saying that cold email is bad, but the person that you're hiring is gonna like try and charge you an insane amount, and just listen to me. And still, no one will ever listen to me until like a few months later, and they're like, "Yeah, we tried that out, it didn't work out." Honestly, I've had a few like cold outreaches that have worked really well, and they're always just super to the point and super niche. Like, "Hey, I heard you're hiring someone, hey, I saw that you're, using some tool or something like that where you hire abroad. We help cross-border transactions. Would you like to set up a call?" Like that to me, it's like the perfect cold outreach, because it's super niche. They're obviously like reaching out to people that are using certain technologies, um, and it's not very salesy. But everyone has been bombarded with these emails like, "Hey, I saw you're in New York. Wouldn't you love to go to a Broadway show?" And it's like, they're just scraping this data. So I would say just slow down, as you said, just calm down and just speak to someone that knows what has worked and what hasn't.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the AI yellow pages to land on my front porch, you know. It's, and for those people that are not sure what the yellow pages are, uh, go to your grandparents' house. They're a thick book. It's probably underneath their computer monitor because they use it as a monitor stand. It was also used for actually where we looked up things. It was the original Google, but back in the day, but they didn't update it very often, about once a year. But it's one of those things that I find time and time again, and I think of somebody that I know, in the San Diego area. His name's Stephen Morris. He's a leadership consultant. Known him for several years, and his approach is the best way I can describe it is just this kind of personable, just all right, let's have a chat, and crank it down a little bit and just kind of ease. And of course, it helps, he's kind of got the SoCal vibe going on too, where it's like, you know, drop him in New York, it's like he would do well, but there'd be like, why, wait a minute, why are you going so slow, man? It's like we should have had 10 meetings by now and it's 9:07. Come on, let's go. But it just, again, I think once we slow down a little bit and actually take some time to understand what our potential client or customer wants and just slow down a little bit, what'll happen is your cost per acquisition, quite frankly, will give you a whole lot better ROI because they're going to feel that you actually spent time with them and not just, rammed them with cold call messages. And I see that you are in Boston. Are you a big Red Sox fan? You're like, oh my God. It's like, of course I'm a Red Sox fan. I'm in Boston. It's against the law to root for that team in the Bronx. That's a no-no.
Sure.
That's capital punishment territory there, folks. Don't do it. I highly recommend against it. Or you just say, no, I'm a Mets fan. They'll be like, okay, we'll allow it. But even then, that's a little. But ultimately, it just boils down to when you're trying to market or work with people, kind of seek to understand, what their challenges are, harmonize what you can offer, and have a conversation. And I know everybody looks at AI and it's been pitched. You can get so much more done. Yeah, but what are you getting done? And is that stuff you should be doing? And I think a lot of us, and you run into this all the time, I know with these customers that are like, "Oh, I want to implement this and this," like they're thinking that they're going to get like 10 million customers out of it. And the stats are showing no, you'd be lucky if you land one. So I think that's going to be the lesson learned once this dust settles a little bit, is like, yeah, we can use AI to take care of certain tasks, but that human decision component needs to be between humans. And I think that's where your organization, really thrives in, amongst many places, is just, getting that human connection to, recognize, okay, let's get you to where you want to be, assuming you know where you want to be. That's a completely other question. It's amazing how many organizations really don't know where they want to go. They want to grow, but they don't know how or where they want to grow to. They just want to grow. Like, you haven't thought much about this, have you? And you don't say that to them; it embarrasses them. But that's what your brain's going. Is like, okay, this guy's not thought about anything about this. So then you kind of walk them along the path and help them out. But in closing, one of the things that jumped out at me in our conversation was, and this goes back to a quote that I was told years and years ago, is selling is serving, marketing is storytelling, and your organization does an amazing job helping these companies tell their story, and stories is what resonates with us. So, what are some approaches that you've taken over your career, and especially, over the last 5+ years, in helping these organizations, no matter how big or how small, to get their story really fine-tuned so they can do what they want to do?
Yeah, I mean, most CEOs don't realize, owners, founders, CEOs, they don't realize that they're usually quite humble, and they don't realize that, and they don't recognize how impressive their story is. They don't even really think about it. They just think like, oh yeah, everyone could do this. This isn't very hard. And then so what I try to do is not, like gas their ego up, but I'm just like, you have a book that could be written about you. Sure, maybe it's not the best book ever written, and that's I think where, people are always comparing themselves to the highest person in their field. Like, oh well, Elon Musk did this, so like, well, I'm nothing. It's like, well, yeah, but like you're still impressive. Like what you did, like just even starting a business, there's only so many people in the world that have done that. Oh, and only just making, $100,000 in revenue. Like that's small potatoes to a billionaire, but no, not a lot of people have done that. Maybe 1% of the population or less. So it's like you have to kind of get them to understand the uniqueness of their story, and then, have them just share a little bit of their journey. I mean, journey, like showing that journey has always been a really powerful thing in, Adam Robinson, who's like the founder of a tech company. He like constantly is sharing his journey on LinkedIn. And while I don't think like his product is like some amazing product that everyone should buy, I think a lot of people are interested in the story. And then he's able to create some like podcast around it. And he's just almost like become like the Oprah or the Gwyneth Paltrow who has a business. So it's like it builds this like really strong flywheel effect anyways. So that's where I would say is like, don't maybe don't even necessarily sell your product because it could be fairly boring, but just try and sell yourself and like how you got here. And the pains are really interesting to learn about. The wins are also interesting to learn about, but those are going to be far and fewer between.
And I think that's what's really important, is, the stories of things and organizations, and okay, why is it important? And your story, it's like you've been in the corporate trenches, you know what it's like. And when organizations or individuals, I should say, take that leap of faith and say, you know what, I'm going to launch my own business. I celebrate it, and I think it's one of those things, and I love how you mentioned, it's like, such a few percentage of humans have ever gone out on their own to launch a business, and they're like, yeah, well, I only made this last year. I'm like, okay, let's go back for a second. On day one, how much revenue had you generated? Zero. And now you're generating average annually this. Yeah, that came from an idea. That came from something that you felt was important enough to help people with, and you created something. And now, like in your situation, several hundred clients. Again, 6 years ago, this business you have now didn't have any, and you've
Right.
created that out of an idea, a concept. Yes, you took steps, you followed protocols, you did all the things that you've done, twists and turns along the way. Let's toss in a pandemic and inflation and wars and tariffs and all the other fun stuff that we get to deal with. But here we are. And it's one of those things where I think a lot of people forget, you know, where they were from. And that's why I'm such a big fan of journaling. And I actually earlier today, I grabbed one of my old journals from I think 7 years ago. And I haven't gone through it all. I was looking through it, and a lot of it is like, wow, I really didn't know what the heck I was doing, to, wow, that actually came through. I didn't realize that's when I had set that goal. So for me, journaling is a big thing and a big help to help you kind of reflect on where things are, and get things out of your mind and onto paper. But, you know, and people say, well, I'll never be Elon Musk. Well, no, because Elon Musk is Elon Musk. Yes, he's a multi-billionaire. Okay, great. Okay, let's say you make 10% of what Elon Musk brings in. I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get kind of lost. It's like, who knows? You might come up with something that's going to make you more than Musk has made. Is that possible? Absolutely. What is it? I wish I could tell you, because then we'd get a group of us together and we'd go crush it, and then we'd be making a ton of money and we'd be good to go. But that's, yeah, you have to start and lean into it. And a quote that a colleague of mine likes to say a lot is, sometimes we underestimate how much we can accomplish. And I think that's what's so important. So in closing, I'd love to hear your thoughts on ideas and what you're seeing for organizations, especially with this ever-changing landscape we're in. What are some things you think we'll see over the next couple of years? I'm not going to say, what do you think in 5 years? 5 years ago we didn't see what we're doing now, so who knows what 5 years from now is going to look like? But what are some things you're seeing on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're getting closer and closer to AI doing a lot of tasks. And I don't know how that's going to shape out from an employment perspective. I'm less worried about the US, but I am very worried about like the Philippines and some of these like lower cost nations where outsourcing has been a really prominent part of their entire economy. So I'm really curious to see, like, there are going to be companies that are going to go too early. I think Klarna has been like kind of the test case for that. They've already said like they're doing too much AI too fast and they need to adjust. Same with Spotify. Then they have companies that are going to be laggards and really not doing anything with AI, and I think they're going to be suffering. I do think like the right balance of like understanding what AI can do, and as you mentioned, like humans are humans. Like an AI bot in an ideal world is going to respond the same way perfectly over and over and over again. So by nature, it cannot be humanistic and realistic and coming up with unique ideas constantly. So what I would say is if you're kind of on the fence of like AI or whatever, I would just try to understand what is it that makes your business human and what can be fully roboticized, and then figure out where you are, where AI is on that path, because um, it's coming fast, and you need to adjust to it. It would be like saying, I'm not going to use the computer. I'm going to just continue to use the typewriter. Like, did the computer solve all of our issues? No, not at all. But the early adoption of it is important for the long-term success of your business.
I agree. It's we're still in the pioneer days, but boy, is that motor carriage going really fast. So buckle, yeah, they must have used a Tesla engine into it instead of the horse. So buckle up, kids. It's going to be a fun ride. So loved our conversation, Justin. Where can people find out more about you and the amazing work you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn under Justin Abrams. My company is Aryo, ARYOCG for consultinggroup.com. You can find me there. I am based in Boston, but I travel, 50 to 75 times a year. So I'm always around to chat, and I would love to grab a coffee if you're in the Boston area.
I definitely will take you up on that next time I'm back there, and encourage people to reach out and learn from you because you've seen and done a lot and continue to do a lot. And loved our conversation today. So thanks again for being on the show, Justin.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael.